During last year's conference of African American financial professionals, I said three simple words that were shared among our colleagues, attendees, and across social media. Wealth begets wealth. Through America's history, whites have amassed 3 times the generational wealth of Blacks, due in large part to the institutional economic barriers facing underserved communities for generations. These barriers have left a significant gap between those benefiting from the current system and those being left behind. The solution is to frame racial justice as economic justice. As Dr. Martin Luther King penned from the Birmingham City Jail in 1963, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. During my formative years in the segregated South, I witnessed discrimination that permeated every aspect of our lives, where we worked, who we associated with, and how we navigated what was seen and unseen. Since pen hit paper declaring America's freedom, there have been no sustainable wealth building programs in the Black community. There's been progress on many basic human rights, but the leaders trusted to run our government and our economy have not connected financial stability to human dignity and decency. I believe one of the reasons for this disconnect is the prism through which we've historically viewed money. For generations, money has been a powerful symbol of privilege and access. If you had it, you also had every opportunity to make more of it or pass it on to future generations. If you didn't have it, conversations always turned to social programs as the absolute means to an end. Racial justice, they said. But is there anything more just than putting everyone on a level playing field? Affording access and opportunity through financial education, robust job training, and mentorship and sponsorship programs that push aspiring, high potential diverse candidates into deserving roles of corporate influence. The college's new Center for Economic Empowerment and Equality is built on the belief that sustainable economic change comes by bringing everyone to the table, those marginalized, as well as the corporate leaders who've neglected the racial wealth gap for decades. Instead of condemning them, we must inspire them to action. It means a diverse set of initiatives that benefit communities and corporations, including financial literacy, recruiting and retention strategies, executive leadership programs, and more. I'm excited for today's discussion, sponsored by our partners at M Financial. Dr. Pamela Jolly, a veteran CAAFP keynote speaker, business strategist, and one of our strategists, and CEO and founder of Torch Enterprises, will lead a conversation between Kareem Hill, the center's newly appointed executive director, Ted Daniels, founder and president of the Society for Financial Education and Professional Development, Colleen Rhodd, advisor, life insurance planning at Lindberg and Ripple, and Wes Thompson, president and CEO of M Financial. They'll examine the importance of financial literacy in closing the wealth gap, answer why financial advisors must develop a plan to integrate financial literacy into their client and prospecting conversations, and explain how a service-oriented business can deliver greater holistic return for the bottom line and communities of color. Thank you for your support as we work together to close the wealth gap and benefit society.
So hello, everyone. I am Dr. Pamela Jolly, and I'm really grateful to be here. Welcome to the CAAFP Breakout Session number 3, Moving Forward Together to Close the Wealth Gap. Let's start with a little bit of housekeeping. If you have any questions throughout this discussion, please enter them in the QA function to the right of your screen. This program has been approved for 2 hours of credit for CFP, CE, and American College CE. So stay tuned until the end of today's session for a special announcement regarding this year's CAAFP conference. So, as I said before, I'm Dr. Pamela Jolly. I'm founder and CEO of Torch Enterprises and senior strategist for the American College of Financial Services. I'm also your moderator for today. And with that, I'd like to set the context of our focus today. Now, our fearless leader and president of the American College has done an amazing job of setting the bigger picture. I want to narrow a little focus, a little closer into the focus of what you will glean from our panelists today. In 2016, CNBC noted that it would take African American families approximately 228 years for their household wealth to reach that of white families, based on the CFED report. I want you to think about your current African American clients. Now I want you to think about your future African American clients. And then ask yourself, will a goal that potentially will take 228 years to achieve motivate them? If your answer is no,
Tell it smart.
I invite you to consider becoming more strategic about ways to address the wealth gap. Now, I'm a strategist, and a strategist connects the what to the how. Getting more strategic about the wealth gap from my perspective means getting specific about what to do concerning the disparities African Americans face along the road to wealth in America. I believe we must address them at the root in the best ways we can to garner maximum impact that passes on for generations. With that, I pose that narrowing the wealth gap in our lifetimes is a business opportunity that we are uniquely qualified and connected to pursue. According to Nielsen, multicultural consumers are the fastest growing segment of the US population. Within the next decade, African Americans, the Latinx community, and the Asian community will spend upwards of $15 trillion. The median age African Americans start to accumulate wealth is 32. From there, we have an opportunity to build wealth for a total of 44 years. With this many years of buying power and opportunity to accumulate assets, I ask you, what is your plan to seize this business opportunity to accelerate the closing of the gap in our lifetime? There is a tremendous business opportunity in these facts for professionals like us. How are you going to pursue it? Are you aware but unsure of what to do about it? If this is you, you are in the right place. Or are you actively pursuing solutions to the root of the problem? If this is you, how's it going? What's your barometer of success? What are your benchmarks? Businesses solve problems. So how are you approaching this important segment of our community with your business? If you aren't doing anything, my question is, are you ignoring it? Because I know you care. And we as African Americans in the financial services industry know we will have an impact on your business. How is your company going to help you accelerate narrowing the wealth gap? Wealth is nothing new in America. We have the tools and the resources to be very targeted, segmented, and drive engagement. How can these same best practices become more culturally relevant to the broader population? It's time we paid attention to what we need and what our communities need to make greater impact in terms of building wealth as a legacy. Are there specific strategies for each of these groups in your business and in your company? The financial services industry creates products, they create services. Yet what are we doing to overcome the financial literacy deficiencies in the lives and pursuits of the communities we represent? There's a concept called linked fate that I want you to pay attention to. Linked fate, as I can most simply describe it, is a shared ethos where when Serena Williams wins, we all feel like we won. And when George Floyd unfortunately gets murdered, we somewhere inside die. Linked fate is a unique advantage to accelerate the pace of progress in terms of narrowing the wealth gap in the African American community. Black people in America have shared a legacy that connects us all, especially financially. This positions you, let me repeat that, this positions you as a change agent in a sea of opportunities to fill a gap that still links us to an inequitable past. I know you can do this. Together, we are 4% of an industry that knows the road to wealth. I want you to walk away from this panel with a renewed sense of purpose, of why you, why now, and why the American College, its newest center of excellence, and its vast network is where you want to remain connected. I'm excited for you today. We are going to learn and hear from rare experts in financial services, just like you, in a field called wealth management. We are going to explore how to look at old tools of the trade, such as financial literacy, and long-standing issues, such as the wealth gap, as new opportunities to make great change. Today, I am hoping something shifts in your perspective. My prayer is that you don't leave the way you came, that you're leaving wanting to do more, be more, and build more wealth along the way to narrowing this gap that I know you can fill. So welcome again to Moving Forward Together to Close the Wealth Gap. With that, I would like to introduce you to our esteemed panelists. The first panelist I would like to introduce you to is Mr. Dwayne Hall. Mr. Dwayne Hall is a fellow Hampton Pirate, and he's a colleague of Ted Daniels, our newest partner with the Center for Economic Empowerment and Equality. Unfortunately, Ted Daniels could not be here today, but I'm grateful that his partner of over 21 years can serve in his place. Mr. Hall has over 3 decades of experience as a portfolio and investment manager. He is well known for retirement planning and presently serves as an active client base of government and corporate professionals in over 18 states. The next I'd like to introduce you to is Mr. Wes Thompson. Mr. Thompson is what my grandmother would say is a man amongst men. He is the president and CEO of the M Financial Group. He is a leader, well positioned to make great change in this gap-filling opportunity. Wes also serves on the board of trustees for the American College and shares the commitment of seizing this moment as an opportunity for culturally relevant win-wins. Next, I'd love to introduce you to Colleen Rhodd. She is a successful financial advisor with the Lindberg and Ripple. She is also the leader of their life insurance division out in South Florida. Colleen has a personal dedication to promoting wealth in individuals and their communities and will share specific ways advisors can work strategically in the times we live in with maximum impact. Last but not least, I'd like to introduce you to Kareem Hill. Kareem is the inaugural executive director of the American College's Center for Economic Empowerment and Equality, affectionately called CAAFP. This is the college's newest center of excellence, built to cultivate lasting relationships between financial services sectors and all underrepresented groups. Kareem oversees the center's research, thought leadership, curriculum and course development, programming and scholarships aimed at promoting economic justice for underserved communities. He has devoted 2 decades of his career to the financial services industry, spending many years at some of our nation's biggest banks, including Wells Fargo, Bank of America, Capital One, and Citizens Bank. I welcome our panelists to our discussion. As we go into our first segment of this breakout, I want to share that I found in my research, we tend to say the same words, but we often mean different things. So I would like to start our session with each of our panelists sharing for a few minutes their personal definition of financial literacy and why it is important in our quest to narrow the wealth gap. I'd like to start with Dwayne Hall. Dwayne, you have journeyed with Ted Daniels for the last 21 years in the Society for Financial Education and Professional Development. From your perspective, how is financial literacy defined and why is it important?
Well, I think that we define financial literacy simply as the ability to understand and effectively use those financial tools and skills for betterment of their life and for the life of their families and their whole environment. That includes the personal financial management, teaching them how to do budgeting and investing to basically create the dream that they want to have. For us, financial literacy is essentially the foundation of their relationship, not only with money, but again, with themselves.
Excellent. So setting that foundation as young as possible is so critical. Would you agree?
Most definitely. It's just extremely important to start it as early as possible. With the society, we start in college, and we've done some other outside events, but we think it should even be done, from cradle to grave. It's an ongoing purpose program we think that they should have. You're never too young, you're never too old to learn about how to be financially literate.
Excellent. Well, we're grateful that you're here today, Dwayne, and we're grateful that you have journeyed as long as you had with Ted Daniels, our new partner. Kareem, let's talk about financial literacy and how it's a catalyst for change.
Well, Dr. Jolly, thank you for having me here. And Dwayne, good to sit on the panel with you, and also Wes. When I think about financial literacy, Dr. Jolly, here's what I think. It is the catalyst for the Black community. And here's how I think about it in practical terms. If we all agree that knowledge is power, money is access, then financial literacy and financial education is our ability to access our power. And no group needs to access this power more than the Black community. So that's really how I look at financial literacy. It is our accessing our power and using that for the betterment of our livelihoods and our future generations' livelihoods. This is the catalyst to us shrinking that wealth gap that we all talk about and we hear about constantly in our community. So I love this panel and I love this topic, and I'm glad to be here with you.
Excellent. And I'm so grateful that you said what you said, because there is some pushback. Financial literacy, that seems like we're going back. But what you're talking about is that this is a catalyst to move forward. It potentially could be a skip step in many lives. And we're making sure that we don't skip steps to make sure the foundation is solid. I love it. Next, Wes Thompson. How can you share with us how the pandemic has shown light on the wealth gap in underserved communities, and in what ways financial literacy is the key to addressing it?
Yeah, no, if you step back a bit, and by the way, thank you for having me with you today, Dr. Jolly, and it's great to also be with this esteemed panel, Karim, Dwayne, Colleen. Really I've enjoyed getting to this point, so I'm glad we're finally here. I think about it first in terms of communities and ethnic groups where every family has its own particular psychology and knowledge of money. And in many cases includes what can be talked about, who should be in control, what money responsibilities are assigned to what gender, how important money is, or in some cases is not. And there are always stories about money that are part of a family's identity. And, in truth, as I think George indicated in the beginning of this discussion, there are select events and policies and practices throughout our history that have made financial inclusion a considerable challenge, right, for many people of color and minority groups in general. And perhaps the most recent event that is contributing to that is COVID. And if you think about COVID as such, one of those events, it has had and resulted not only in a public health and economic crisis, certainly in the early stage, that it's no secret that it's also had a disproportionate impact on communities of color. And I think that's one of the areas that perhaps this is the right time now to think about that financial literacy, building of wealth or lack thereof in our own communities. And I think COVID has really shone a light on some of the challenges that are faced by communities of color, but it's also provided an opportunity for us to think about this challenge quite differently going forward.
Excellent. So shining that light, as I hear you say it, I mean, I totally agree. So really everyone is thinking about their relationship with money and that pursuit of wealth. And so while this is top of mind for everyone, this is a great opportunity for us to really get to the root of the problem.
Absolutely.
Excellent. Colleen, in regards to financial literacy, how can it be a tool for financial advisors in narrowing the wealth gap?
Well, I think that, as you mentioned earlier, there are a lot of buzzwords that are used all the time. And what we seem to forget is that the best thing that we can do for our clients is provide them with an education. You allow them to, play offense and not get themselves into certain situations, and also learn defense and how to, clean up situations that they may be in, because as Dwayne said earlier, this is something that you're going to have to deal with throughout your entire life. So through the grave, you're going to have to make financial decisions. And so us having the ability to communicate with our community and show them these methods, these planning techniques, etc., it's the best way that we can narrow that wealth gap.
That's excellent. And I love how, one of the many roles of the financial advisor is an educator. And so becoming very adept to the way of using financial literacy in culturally relevant ways really shows your clients that you want them to have that foundation. Excellent. So, I hear these topics, and I really hope that the audience really understands that financial literacy, there are some things, what I learned as someone who has worked in financial services my entire career is that the fundamentals never change. But if you don't understand the fundamentals, you'll skip some steps. And so what we're talking about in terms of financial literacy is it's fundamental. It's fundamental to setting a foundation as young and as often as possible. It's fundamental to having greater awareness of what wealth is and how to pursue it. And it's fundamental for the catalyst for change in the past and in the future. But as financial advisors, it's fundamental to be a specific and strategic part of the way you educate your client base. Panelists, any other things that you want to add about financial literacy before we move on to the next section?
So, Dr. Jolly, one thing I'd add, and I think this is the culturally relevant piece of financial literacy. I think as a Black community, we have to get over some of these stigmas that we have embodied through our journey here in this country. And the word literacy, we have to get over the idea that we're not literate in something, and something as critical as money, right? We need to look at it as, I'm on my journey. I'm on my money journey. I'm on my money understanding journey, and not look at it as I'm deficient in something. I think if we can get over that, then we can allow the client can allow the advisor to then bring that expertise and knowledge they need so that they can further their financial standing. So I just hope that as a community, as a Black community, we can get over those things that are internal blockers, and then we can allow this population of Black financial advisors and financial service professionals to do their jobs and help us reduce this wealth gap.
That's amazing, Kareem, because that's a shift in perspective. So I hope the audience has really understood that we're not going to come from the deficient perspective. We're going to come from this as an opportunistic way to be able to build a better relationship with money and move forward. Anyone else want to add?
Yes, Dr. Jolly. When we were practicing for this, Wes Thompson, he was telling a story about making a meal with his wife and how financial literacy, it's about having the right ingredients in order to create the ideal financial world for yourself. And I thought about that a little bit, and it's not only the ingredients, but the timing as well, to your point, when to implement these different strategies. So I think that along with the ingredients, knowing, keeping in touch with the timing as well is something that is very important when you're trying to reach this result.
That's excellent. What I hear is there's a cadence to this. And I talked about before where, the median age to start building wealth is 32. And we've got a 44-year journey. So really understanding the right timing at the right time, the right timing and the right place and the right client is really important. Thank you for that. Anyone else want to share? Okay.
There's an element to, it's sort of building off what Karim just shared, and that's this notion of money in some communities, in many of our communities, being thought of as in a negative way in many ways, and the notion of wealth typically being aligned or used in terms of the abundance of valuable, possessions or money. And I think that that's part of the shift we have to also think about. I think it's about prosperity and not just wealth. And in terms of, and while those two words are used quite interchangeably, I think prosperity seems a bit more expansive, because I also believe that as it relates to our community, health is as important as wealth, and they go together. I mean, a number of studies have shown that. And I think when we talk about financial literacy, we talk about wealth, closing the wealth gap, I think we have to think about it more broadly, because it's really hard to enjoy wealth if you're don't have good health. And those two elements in our communities are so important in terms of the challenges that are faced by people of color.
So that's really powerful, Wes, because it's a holistic approach to wealth and the importance of deepening that definition and the importance of having an ongoing discussion. I think about, for the audience, think about who in your network can you help add to this financial literacy definition. We have to look at this from a positive pace, but we have to expand it to include the fullness of wealth. One of the ways that I define wealth is a fulfilled life. And so when we think about that, it is more than money. And that's really, really important. Okay, anyone else? If not, we'll jump to the next question. If anyone has any questions in the audience, please put them in the chat so that we can have a really robust question and answer session. So the next question is, I really want to I really enjoy getting to know our panelists, and they're all doing some amazing things. These are strategists in their own right. They really have taken the time during COVID to really get strategic about ways to address the root causes of narrowing the wealth gap. And so I want to talk one by one and really give them an opportunity to peer into their worlds so that you can truly understand their perspective and see how you can either align with it or adapt it to yours. So with that, I'd like to start with Colleen. Colleen, when you think about what you're doing, in particular to the topic of our panel, share with them about some of your activities.
So I'm located in West Palm Beach, Florida, for anyone who does not know. And I serve as vice president of the board of the Spady Museum, which is located in Delray Beach and is registered as the only African-American museum in Palm Beach County. Aside from the cultural aspect and bringing the arts to our community, a thing that we spend our money on, and as an organization, we're very proud of the fact that 91 cents of every dollar that we receive in donations is spent, it's reinvested in the museum. And so part of that are programs that we hold for children. We're trying to get them the tools to explore careers that they maybe wouldn't have thought about. We had a code academy for young women, which was just so well received that we want to hold additional coding academies there. But aside from that, we also do financial educational training with nonprofit groups that work with kids during camp. So last year I taught a class on the investing in the stock market. And, you know, it really started with something as basic as me showing them logos. You know, do you recognize this logo? And of course they did. And I let them know that these are companies that people can have ownership in. And one of the greatest things that I took away from that class is one of the students, his mother already had him trading in a fake account. And so he understood, you know, what options were, and he was barely 11 years old. And so what that says to me is that if you have a family that's engaged in putting you in front of these things, then you have you know, a longer runway up to that 32 to learn these valuable lessons before you start accumulating wealth. So that's one thing that I'm very proud of our museum for doing.
That's excellent. And I love how you're using your leadership to also build a pipeline for future generations. You're really addressing the financial literacy and wealth building needs for 2 generations at the same time between parents and their children. Love that.
So sorry to interrupt, but one of the greatest things that I heard from one of our partners was, you know, he's the head of the African American Studies program for Palm Beach County schools. And he said that historically, people are told to stay outside of the school. There's this giant fence around the school, a wall. But really, you have people like Wes, like Karim, like Dwayne, like yourself, Dr. Jolly, who can, you know, basically serve as early mentors for these students. And so if we have a situation where we're, you know, allowed to have more access to these children, then I think that, again, it would give them so much more power so much earlier.
So that's another shift in perspective, to be able to think about building a pipeline for yourself and future African-American financial advisors along this road so that we can narrow this gap in our lifetime. Love it. Love it. So Wes, I so enjoyed speaking with you and getting to know you in preparation for this panel. I'd love to talk about what you're doing with the Magnet program. And I think we have a graphic that would help you really hone in on the importance of what you're doing.
Yeah, thank you. And this is a slide that I shared probably a little over a year ago in a town hall meeting that I had as part of the Links Incorporated, which is a national service organization of women of African descent, some of the most significant individuals and communities across the United States. But I shared it in the context of looking at the population of Black and Latina in our country, and representing somewhere around 32%, give or take a percentage point here or there, and then the financial advisory community, where that same cohort make up 3.5%. And I made the comment that it's actually easier to find a physician in the African American community than it is to find a financial advisor. Mm. And that's pretty powerful, right? When you think about wealth and the wealth gap being so important. Yes, the health gap is there too. So it sort of ties back to my original comment. And I think it's a powerful slide because it does underscore the importance then of education and financial advice, because it's such a critical ingredient to the success and sustainability, not only of individuals, but I am a big believer that it's a critical ingredient also to small business owners. And unfortunately, what this slide really demonstrates is that trusted and accessible advice is a missing ingredient in communities of color. And so it's one where I think our industry has to really look itself in the mirror and look to address it, because the opportunities are also enormous. The way that we've begun to address this, and it's a small part of, I think, what has to be a much broader set of initiatives across our industry, is at we committed to helping to close this gap that you see here through really looking at how we can recruit and develop women and people of color in our industry as advisors. So we developed Magnet, which is M Financial's industry-leading, really professional development program. And it's really designed to bring people into the industry, train, guide, mentor, and really provide the next generation of what we hope to be successful advisors. And as I said, while the program is a national program, it's focused on all opportunities, everyone, I should say, we do have a commitment to really making sure that we've got pools of women and people of color who are recruited into this 2-year salaried program that provides tremendous mentorship. It's aligned with the independent entrepreneurial network of our member firms. So it provides opportunities nationally, and it's really supported, and I'm proud of the support that we've gotten from a number of large insurance carriers that are our partners: Pacific Life, Nationwide, Lincoln Financial Group, Prudential, and John Hancock. And I'm pleased to say that after it's been in effect about 1.5 years, and we have about over 30% of the population of our advisors in the program, Colleen is one of them, a graduate, are women and people of color. And that's a big difference than the slide that you saw earlier. So that's our small way of impacting it. But this is a big issue that I think is an industry issue generally in terms of the advisory business.
That's excellent, Wes. That's another shift in perspective, audience. The wealth gap also is on your side in terms of finding ways to be able to close the gap by increasing the number of women and people of color in our industry. We're definitely going to need an army to be able to address this gap and narrow it in our lifetime. And so I applaud you, Wes, and I'm proud to know you for what you're doing with the Magnet program. I also applaud you for working with the Links, because that's a legacy organization of multi-generations that have committed to philanthropy and wealth building. So I believe that that's amazing.
Yeah, and I must say that it's been an amazing partnership with the Links, and many of our carriers are also networked into that partnership. And it's really about providing access to sons and daughters and colleagues in the network of the Links within the Links community to channel those young men and women who might have an interest in our industry to our program, to Magnet.
And so what you're doing is you're making narrowing the wealth gap, both on the professional side as well as the community side, a family affair. And so I think that's amazing because it does take a family. Wonderful. And so before I jump to Dwayne and Kareem, Colleen, congratulations on being an alum of the Magnet program. Do you want to share a little bit more? Because I'm hoping that the audience will start to think about their friends and family who may want to join this program and join the Army to narrow the wealth gap.
Absolutely. Wes is completely correct in saying that this program is revolutionary. You are given access. So my firm is Lindberg and Ripple, and we are one of the firms that make up M Financial. So my firm had the opportunity to recruit me directly and put me in the Magnet program.
Oh, wow.
And just from the beginning, this was something that we weren't really sure how to approach. I was in the first cohort, and they just gave you all of the tools that you needed to get out there and start prospecting. They taught you advanced financial planning techniques. And again, one of the greatest things that I got out of this was a mentor, actually two mentors, Grace Vandecruz, who sits on the board of M Financial.
Fellow Wharton grad.
She's a mentor, and I'm fortunate to have access to her because of everything she is and everything that she's accomplished. And secondly, our partner at the firm, Carl Peterson. He is someone that's been in the industry for so long, and he works with some of the top trusted estate planning attorneys, and he just having access to somebody that is so involved in the financial planning needs of the ultra affluent community is invaluable. So yes, I cannot praise the Magnet program enough, and it evolves because they take our feedback and really try to give us exactly what we're asking for, whether it's content, training, and it's just getting much bigger, and it actually it's more than I could have asked for or expected.
That's amazing. And so mentorship is so important on both sides, especially as what I have found in our industry is that succession is such an important part of making sure that we build these networks across generations. So I'm so proud of you for graduating from the program. I'm happy to hear that my fellow Wharton classmate is a mentor of yours, but it seems as if the Magnet program has expanded your perspective of what's possible for you as a financial advisor in this industry. Would that be correct?
Oh, absolutely. To your point earlier, it's not just, it's not a number. Net worth is not a number. It's a lifestyle. And so while I'm creating a better lifestyle for my clients, I'm also improving my own lifestyle. So it's going both ways, and the learning never ends. And, the whole idea is to keep these relationships, and because we want to have a succession plan for our firm, and that involves me. So it's really a positive way to think about your future. And again, I wouldn't have had this access if it was not through the Magnet program.
Talk about a win-win. That's wonderful. So in light of the win-win, and for those of you who remember my keynote last year where I talked about the win-win, I'd like to talk to both Kareem and Dwayne Hall about a win-win, because we've established a win-win here at the college, particularly with the center, with a partnership with Ted Daniels that's represented by Dwayne Hall today. I'd like to start with Dwayne Hall talking about, cast a vision for us. Talk to us about the last 21 years and what specifically you have worked with Ted Daniels and the impact.
Well, 21 years ago, when Ted was just coming out of his old position, was going to retire, he came and said, we need to start something for financial literacy. And Ted came up with an ideal because that's where he was committed. And at the time, he said, we got to reach people earlier. And essentially, he set up the society, which we'll just call the society right now. And we started going to HBCUs, historically Black colleges and universities. And I don't think across the United States, there is an HBCU that we have not gone to. And we essentially said, look, what we need to be doing is set up where African-American students at HBCUs understand that they have a foundational money management knowledge. And we said, if we can do that, the thing that we really need to do is start changing the values and the mindset. And we said, Ted said, if we can change essentially and teach the core financial and economic concepts, and then take those concepts and show them how to use them in practical applications, then they could see the opportunities. I mean, when I sit down sometimes and I'm doing these workshops and I'll show students, I'll say, okay, hey, look, how many of you, when it was time to go to college, how many of your parents were able to just stroke that check? And whether I'm at Morehouse or Prairie View or Texas Southern, they'll sit there and they'll always laugh. And they're like, yeah, right. And then we'll show them, well, 18 years ago, guess what? If your parents had put $1,000 into Domino's, if their parents had put $1,000 into Netflix, if your parents had put $1,000 into Apple, here's what that would be now. And when you show them the numbers and you say, understand, we're not talking big money, we're saying $1,000. Could your parents did that? Yeah, they bought us Jordans, they bought us Nike, the Easy Bake Oven, the G.I. Joe with the Kung Fu grip. Now they see that, whoa, there's opportunity. They see the numbers and they say, yeah, that then would have been able to pay for your college now and you wouldn't be sitting there. So we attempt to change that through these practical skills. We use exercises, demonstrations. We get these student ambassadors, because what started happening is we actually got a demand that there may be 6 or 7 of us financial presenters, and we couldn't reach enough people. So we then set up what we call student ambassadors. And what they do is we've gotten scholarships to actual students at the school, and we teach them how to present some of these core concepts. And they're not only doing it there at the school, but they're now starting to go out into the community. And so it's a reach one, teach one type of phase where we're trying to get momentum so that everyone understands that, look, we're changing lives. And once students understand that, hey, the concepts that they're learning can allow them to not only help themselves, but help their families and go back and help their parents and begin to build wealth because of a change in behavior and mindset, we have just found that to be incredible. There has been nothing more rewarding because, again, that this isn't my full-time job, but I've been doing with Ted Brown for 21 years because it is so rewarding when you see college students come back, call you 6 years later, 7 years after they graduate, and say, hey, Mr. Daniels, Mr. Hall, I just want to tell you, I'm now in the 401k, I've done this, I bought my first house, and I've got in investments. I never would have done that without the society coming in and talking to us about what I could do and the value of money.
That's amazing, Dwayne. So I see 3 shifts in perspective there. One is that retirement is not the end, that you can go from retirement to taking a review of your long-lasting career. Ted Daniels has an amazing career in financial services and still wanting to do more and creating an organization that would then work with a friend of his and really apply their knowledge, talk about passing the torch to our historically Black college students and graduates. But that's the first shift. The second shift that I see is that you built some infrastructure. You recognize that, the opportunity was so great that you wanted to build a pipeline. So those student ambassadors, amazing. The fact that you were then able to train them and then they were able to train that next generation. But the third piece is what I'm excited about as well, because the relationship between Ted Daniels and George Nichols, the American College president, really yielded a very powerful asset at the center that Kareem Hill and I, who serve as Kareem Hill's strategists, are very grateful for, is that partnership, that succession, that expansion, the opportunity to expand it even more so with the infrastructure at the college, as well as the increased need and demand. And so, Dwayne, talk to me about what you see is rare and unique, not just of what you have done, but what the future looks like with your relationship with the college.
Well, I think the college, and just as an aside, one of the folks that has worked with me for the last 34 years and is in the same office is your person, Lee Bethel, who has been a friend, and I've seen what Lee has done throughout the years, attempting to get additional African Americans into the business and into the community. I think what Ted has been doing in the society pairs completely with that, because it's all about expanding. I mean, we know the numbers, average African American, $16,000 net worth, but we're spending $1.6 trillion. There's got to be a way to assist in transitioning that wealth, utilizing that wealth. And the only way we're going to do it is by getting more people of color, not only into the industry, but in front of people who have wealth, so that they have what they feel, I think, comfortable decisions on who they can work with. We've all had, those of us who've been in the industry a while, I've been in 35 years as an OSJ and a branch manager for LPL Financial. I go to workshops, conferences. I was as they say, the only chip in the cookie, or the only chip in the cookie for years. And so, if I'm the only one there, who are my clients seeing, or who are those potential clients seeing? So I think we all have this partnership now that basically can give those prospects, those consumers, our market confidence, because now we're not the rarity and we can address their needs. And I think the American Colleges partnership will allow both the society to expand the knowledge. And that's what I think is key, expanding knowledge on both on the consumer's end and on the advisor's end of, hey, look, there's some misconceptions on our side also of that. Well, I'm not going to deal with African Americans as the market because they don't invest. They don't do these things. And I think it's education on both sides. And I think this partnership is going to be working out great in that respect.
This is amazing. In my research, what I found is it takes 3 generations to build legacy wealth and only 1 generation to lose it. But when 4 generations come together, the wealth wheel begins to turn. So when I think about how you've been working with Ted and the long-lasting careers that you have had and how you've been working with the younger generation, but also these generational transfers that are happening on the business side of it as well. And so, Kareem, one of the things I was so proud of is how you were able to develop that relationship with Ted Daniels and the society and his work. Would you like to start by talking about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So first, Dwayne, thank you for everything you and Ted have done, not just for those students and those student ambassadors, but for the Black community in general for the last 21 years. So thank you for everything you guys have done. So Dr. Jolly, when you talk about this partnership, what really struck me was it was Ted Daniels, an African-American man, President George Nichols, an African-American man, coming together saying, how can we do something that has lasting impact? Not just for them, because those two have made money. Those two have been very successful, had great careers, both of them. But how can we do something that has a tail on it, that affects globally, nationally, the Black ecosystem, but also, to your point, those next future generations? So how do we come about this partnership? When those two gentlemen sat down and figured out that there was something there for us to do, my job was just to come to it and say, how can we structure it? To your point earlier, how can we build the infrastructure around this? The goal was to take what SFE&PD has already done for the last 21 years and amplify it. That's really what we're trying to do. Amplify the efforts that have been put out there by Ted and Dwayne and the rest of the staff at SFE&PD. That's what we're trying to accomplish. And then lastly, I love, Dr. Jolly, how you constantly talk about win-win. And here's how we see the win-win in this work we're doing around financial education, financial literacy with SFE&PD. The win for the consumer is this: they become more knowledgeable around their personal financial journey, and they set their journey. We don't set their journey for them. Whatever they deem as wealth is what they deem as wealth, and they are more knowledgeable in that journey. The win for the advisor is a more knowledgeable client is a better client. Because what happens, and people don't realize this, what happens is this is the information age. There's information everywhere. but it's more critical than ever that we have trusted advisors guiding us. Take a look at what happened in this country the last year with the previous administration, and I don't care what your party affiliation is. If you look at what's happened, misinformation is something that is critically important right now. And the role of the Black advisor is more important than it's ever been, because we need trusted advisors to guide us on our personal journeys. So that's really what the goal is in this partnership with SFE&PD.
That's amazing. But talk to us a little bit more about the work of the center. You know, we have the 4 Steps Forward program. What do you want our audience to really know about in terms of how we are addressing the strategic way to narrow the wealth gap?
Yeah, and so when if any of you joined this conference last year, you heard President George Nichols talk about 4 Steps Forward. And when I looked at 4 Steps Forward, when they asked me to come on board and to assist in this work, initially I looked at it as 4 separate pillars. You know, 1, financial literacy and education; 2, recruit and retain Black advisors; 3, executive education that's culturally relevant; and 4, a global collective impact for the Black community. But what I really, as we got into this, and with your help, Dr. Jolly, I really started to realize this is a continuum process. It's not individual 4 pillars. It's a continuum. And this is what I mean by that. Financial education is the core and the cornerstone of everything that we're going to do at the center. Right now, it's for the Black community. And then once we get through this, we're going to do it for other underrepresented groups: Latinx, LGBTQ, rural whites, whatever it may be. But right now, we're focused on the Black community. The more we educate Blacks, and we're going to, as I said, we're going to expand on what the work TED has already done. TED's educated 125,000 Blacks over the last 21 years. Our goal is to educate 1 million Blacks over the next 10 years. That's the amplification we were talking about. But we're starting with the financial education. The more educated consumer that's out there, we believe creates a pull strategy for the financial services industry, meaning the more educated the consumer is, the more the consumer will want to look into the financial services industry. And once they attain our certificate of financial education, they will then be inclined to go and get further designations in financial services. The more they go down that path, they will need to then go to member firms and go into the great programs like the one that we just heard from Wes, the Magnet program, that allows people to get into the industry and stay in the industry. And that goes into pillar 2, the recruit and retain piece. Now, once you're recruited into a firm, you now feel like you have some connection there. We're going to focus now on creating and helping those firms create an environment that's inclusive for Black advisors, culturally inclusive for Black advisors. That's the retention piece in pillar 2. Then you move up to pillar 3, executive education. What do we mean by that? We all know that once, and I lived this life as a former banker, once you get to a certain point, you're now thrust into different types of challenges and different types of issues. And it's no different than the firms that all of these advisors who are watching this program experience every single day. You need a trusted source to provide you with culturally relevant information and knowledge to help navigate that company. That's what we're going to do in our executive education piece. There will be definitely a clinical piece of it that is more around understanding balance sheets and the education side of it, the academic side of it. But the secret sauce will be the culturally relevant pieces of it that address what a Black individual goes through and how a Black person sees certain things. So that's the culturally relevant piece in pillar 3 of executive education. And the last pillar, pillar 4, collective impact. How do we take all that great work we just did in pillars 1, 2, and 3 and get it out to the masses, get it out there so that we can reach 1 million people and above? That's the collective impact piece. It's not just going to be for college students. It's going to be for people that have jobs, people that are single mothers. It's going to be for families. It's going to be for veterans that are Black. That's the collective impact piece we're trying to attack. So that's the work we're doing in the center with the 4 Steps Forward program.
That's amazing, and I'm so grateful to be a part of it. And this is a holistic approach, and we're not going it alone. So I pray that the audience understands that the Center of Excellence, this is a center of excellence. So we are praying that you will find a way to really work with the center so that you can elevate your standard of business to really take advantage of this opportunity. As we wrap up this part of this section of our panel section, I'd like each of you quickly to give us one takeaway Given the fact that you have been in, quote unquote, the lab, thinking through ways to address this issue, what can you offer as someone who can see it clearer than most? Something that they can do, that our audience can execute immediately to advance financial literacy and narrowing the wealth gap, given the work that you do.
Yeah, so Dr. Jolly, I'll start us off. So to me, what I would like this audience to know, the thing that I think you can do is help our community get over this stigma of literacy, financial literacy. And here's how. Let me give you a true takeaway on how you can do that. Educate your clients, your family, your friends on the fact that financial literacy, or you can call it financial education if you'd like, is not basic blocking and tackling, but it can go from basic to advanced, just like education does. Help them understand that the journey in financial, reducing this wealth gap through financial education is understanding cash, understanding credit, understanding asset allocation and asset building, and insurance. That's what our community doesn't quite get. We don't get the four legs of the wealth gap. Cash is important, making sure you have money coming in the front door. Credit, when COVID hit and we as a community were locked out of all this PPP money, it's because we didn't have credit accounts for business owners with banks. So credit is vital. Understanding why assets are important, and you can't have a high net worth without assets. And then understanding you have to protect your assets with insurance, and most importantly, you pass it down to your future generations with insurance. I implore all of the people on this broadcast to educate your clients, your family members, your friends, anyone in your social circle around those four components. If we do that, we have a chance to start this journey to close that wealth gap.
Excellent. Who's next?
Well, if nobody's going to speak up, I'll go ahead. The one thing that I would say that I think we all immediately need to do, if you're not doing it, is in that process of education, get your friends, your prospects, your clients to make sure they understand the difference between immediate and deferred gratification. I know that's a part of education. However, I show them, because most of our folks seemingly do not understand, because they say, look, I'm only making a little bit of money, or that's not going to change my life. But you show them through education that, look, you're going to Starbucks every day, that's $5. If we change that and you modify that behavior, this is maybe $1 at 7-Eleven. You've now got $4 a day. That's $20 plus a week. If you took that money and just put it in a mutual fund or whatever at, $50 a month, 75, change that habit, change your mentality. Look at what you have in 30 years. Look at what you have in 40 years. And that's wealth building. And to also have what I call difficult conversations. You have to get your clients, because our clients, trust me, they don't like talking about money. They don't want to talk to their spouses because they say, well, it's going to start a fight. They don't talk to their parents because their parents say, well, they think their parents are going to tell them, well, you just want to know what we have because you want to know what you're going to inherit. And then they don't talk to their kids about money. And so we've got to get people talking. So you should be going out, starting those conversations, and just get them talking about money, and then listen. And a lot of times you'll get a lot of clues about how to then bring in what education pieces based on, hey, what keeps you up at night?
Excellent, excellent. Wes or Colleen?
Yeah, I'll just add to, not much I can build on the two comments that have been made already by Dwayne and Karim, but I would just say, talk to our kids first. I think, there's so many of the advisors on this call who have children, who have maybe brothers and sisters who have children, if they don't have children of your own. So I think it starts there. I think we really got to get to our children early. And part of it is our so much of the cultural barriers that exist in our community where we don't talk to our kids about money. and it's not about, positioning money as something as evil, or talking about it in a way that's about accumulating it, for just possession purposes, but in terms of its value and what it can do for changing people's lives and doing good also. But I think those are conversations that need to happen early. Certainly many of us, our first experiences with money is things like counting money or dropping it in a piggy bank. But I think we need to have more honest and open conversations with our children about money.
Excellent. Colleen, you want to wrap us up?
Sure, absolutely. So all practical advice, what my advice for my fellow financial advisors out there is to get excited. Get excited about the greatness of the opportunity that's out there. Because aside from our ability to help people build wealth and show them these tools, we have many, many members of our community that are millionaires, that have worked for government agencies their entire careers and have pensions, et cetera, that we can plan with. We have African-American women who are the fastest growing group of entrepreneurs. We have just a huge opportunity to provide wealth management and financial planning tools to our own community. Last point I'll make is we have 2 advisors in the Magnet program who are located up in New Jersey, and their meeting was serendipitous, but they are working amazingly as a team. And they've told me that the group of people that have been the most receptive to receiving planning advice from them are African-American women. So they are transferring their 401ks to them and allowing them to manage. And so it's so big. There's so much work for us to do. And I just want everyone on this broadcast to get excited about what's out there for us.
Excellent, excellent. So to wrap up this piece, listen, find your tribe, dispel the myths about financial literacy, remain connected, but also stay culturally relevant. Speak your native tongue with a financial literacy bent, and let's see what happens in terms of us narrowing the wealth gap. And so audience, we've got 2 more great parts. The next part is we're going to have reflections and discussion. I don't know about you. I hope that you're grateful to be here. I hope that you're enjoying this dialogue. We're going to now reflect on all the amazing things that have been said and have a discussion amongst the 4 of us that we hope will inspire you, but also educate you. And then I'm so grateful for those of you who have put questions in the chat. We're going to go through those questions as long as our time permits. So looking forward to having that engagement directly as you are asking for it. With that being said, I want to start this collective conversation because we've gone in a variety of different ways, but this is a holistic approach. It takes a village, and it definitely takes a dream team to be able to put something together. What I found in traveling across the country, talking about wealth, Black wealth, for over 17 years, is that we are more alike than different, and that 80% of our problems really are shared. And those 20% are how you look at it and whether or not you think it's possible and how far down the road you want to take. Dwayne, in light of the times that we live in and the topics brought up on this panel, can you share your thoughts about ways our audience can seize this moment?
I think that they've got to reach out. The old song, reach out and touch somebody's hand. You got to reach out right now. People want advice. They want solutions. And you've got to show. I mean, I was in the barbershop the other day actually getting a haircut because I knew I was going to be on today in my head.
Looks good, Hampton grad. It looks good.
Well, thank you. It was kind of shaggy because I haven't been anywhere, but I actually masked up, went to the barbershop, and of all things, they were having a conversation about, and there were several gentlemen who thought that African Americans, the deck was stacked against them, and that we couldn't make any money. We couldn't keep any money because they were talking about all the athletes who have lost money, the Mike Tysons, the basketball players and all of that for poor money management. They're saying, well, the system is set up for us not to make it. And I was actually happy that there were several younger people who actually stood up and said, hey, no, we just got to learn how to use the system. There is a system. And it was like, well, how do you guys know that? They didn't know who I was. And I said, how do you guys know that? And they said, oh, well, we took a personal finance course in college, and I'm an accounting major. That's what has to happen. We all have to go out and reach and start educating that, look, these things are possible. We don't just have to spend. We need to understand. You got to get your clients to read, The Millionaire Next Door, Dennis Kimbrough, Think and Grow Rich or Black Choice. All of these books, you got to get educated, and you got to get your clients educated, and not just your clients. I mean, sometimes it's about, and Lee Bethel is very good about talking about planting seeds. You may not get an immediate result, but I've got people that I talked to 25, 30 years ago, and now their kids are clients. The parents were never clients, but now their kids who've now gone to college, graduated, have great jobs. They're client because that seed, everything that you do won't be an immediate benefit for you today. But again, take it from somebody who's been in the business for a while. If you want to be in there long, then you need to plan long term.
Excellent, excellent. Kareem, what are your hopes for the center and ways we can engage our community and Black financial advisors?
Yeah, my hopes for the center when it comes to the Black financial advisor portfolio is that we are a vehicle to increase the denominator, right? To me, the thing that needs to happen is we need more Blacks in financial services, period. We need more Black people in it. And let me give you a story that kind of talks about this. So I live in Boston, and Dr. Jolly and I both share an affiliation with Martha's Vineyard. So every year I go back to the vineyard with a group of very successful Black families. And we sit around the table at night talking about every single year this concept of shrinking the wealth gap. Now, all of them are very well to do. And every year, after a few glasses of wine, it turns into how many Black people have we helped personally? How many Black people's lives have we changed personally? How many Black people have we mentored or helped become more successful personally? And then we go back the next year, and it literally turns into a readout, Dr. Jolly, of, hey, I helped 3. And then we talk about how we helped them. I helped 4, and we talk about how we helped them. I say all that to say, my goal is that the college and the center do that exact same thing on a larger scale, right? When it comes to getting more Blacks into the industry. That's my goal. And we really need that as a population, we need it. And as a consumer base, we need it. Because to Dwayne's point, we need to share that knowledge base with all of us.
Excellent. Wes, how can advisors think outside their current perspective?
Yeah, I think just building on what we've heard, I think part of it is also exploring markets and providing other types of value to your clients. And I say this perhaps maybe even more geared to small business owners. And what I've experienced is that, we're very focused obviously on giving advice within the areas of our expertise as financial advisors. And what you find is my father was a small business owner, so I know some of what goes on in a small business. And many small business owners have the technical knowledge about their business, right? They have the knowledge of their business. They have the knowledge of what the sort of technical components are of that business. As simple as a plumber or, what they don't have in many cases that they can use more of it, that I think is that an advisor can sort of think out of the box, is how can you as an advisor bring your network to bear to help that small business owner in different ways. So it's not just about providing the financial advice, but every successful advisor that I know has a network. And that network can consist of someone who's got some expertise in marketing, someone who's got some expertise in accounting, someone that has expertise in technology, so basic digital stuff, that a lot of small business owners could use that help. That in turn helps them become more successful, and I think really deepens the relationship with the advisor when you're looking to sort of make deposits rather than just go in and look for opportunities to purely, not that it's not the right thing to do ultimately, in terms of helping a small business owner or someone look at how they're managing their money, look at how they're investing that money, look at how they're taking care of that income that they are making from that business. But many small businesses are failing because they don't have some of the other skills. And those, they don't necessarily need to have that skill. They certainly can hire consultants, but we have networks. And I think we have to do a better job, not unlike what Karim just said, sitting on the vineyard, thinking about how we can affect and help 2 or 3 other people. I think you can do the same way when you think about a small business owner that you may have as a client.
That's excellent. That's excellent. Colleen, what are some of the key takeaways for advisors who would believe as you do about the opportunity in today's times?
It's a great question. Well, I think that advisors, one of the things that I did early on in my career is really establish who I like to work with. So, when you're out there and you're prospecting, you feel like it's necessary to try to wow everyone and engage everyone, and you can work with everyone, and that is completely unfair to yourself. So if you take the time to figure out what your strengths are and who you like to work with, you have a much better chance of building a book of business of clients that will stay with you for a long, long time. I know that sounds a little bit preachy, but it's honestly one of the best exercises that you can go through because it allows you to be yourself when you're talking to your clients. So when I went through that exercise, I determined that I love working with people who love something. They either love their family, they love a business, they love a charitable organization, they love their church, but they love something. And so knowing that, I realized that going into the life insurance planning business was something that would actually allow me to help people protect things that they love. And then it doesn't feel like work anymore. And I think that, that's probably some of the best advice that I could give anyone that is building their business, their book of business, and their clients now. So keep that in mind.
That's excellent. That's excellent. As I think about what all of you have really talked about and are thinking about, I'm going to start to integrate some of the questions that we're getting from our audience into this discussion. The first one comes from Centario Greer. And so he asked about how important is the family unit as it relates to building wealth in the Black community?
If I could take a quick stab at that, I think it's extremely important because you want to build, if you're going to build wealth that's cumulative, that's why everybody needs to be involved in the conversation so that there's an entry point and there's an exit of understanding. Otherwise, what you have is mom knows that as soon as mom and dad pass away, all the wealth that they've built is probably going to be dissipated. Dissipated between, hey, I've got 4 kids, I've got a family house. Maybe that we go to the vineyards every year, and at that house, I've got one son who is close, an hour away, and I've got another daughter who's all the way down in Florida. And all of a sudden now, the one in Florida says, I want to sell the house because I'm not coming up there all the time to the vineyards. So if there's no plan to build the wealth on how we're going to sit down, and what I found primarily is that should be a conversation that the family has before the funeral, because at the funeral, it could be the gold watch or anything else that now we've got feelings hurt. Mom wanted me to have this, dad wanted me to have this. Let's sell the house because there was no plan. Hey, family, this is how we're going to build wealth. We've got land, we've got this, and you're going to do this. And that's why you incorporate the family into that procedure so that everybody has the eye on the prize. And the eye is a lasting legacy. What's your legacy? What do you want as your legacy?
So true. And, what I teach is that, your first introduction to business is your family business. And they teach you what to do and what not to do. But we as a community, our family business is moving further down the road. For the first time ever, more African Americans are going to receive an inheritance. And so there's a business around the work of inheritance that we all need to learn. And so, because to your point, Dwayne, there's a lot of people on the vineyard. I have an event on the vineyard every year. I've been going to the vineyard ever since I was a child. And it hurts my heart when some of my friends lose the homes because they haven't thought about how to take care of it. But I also have been very proud of elders that I've been able to sit at the feet of while I was at the vineyard. They're Links members, Wes, who basically started to say, you know what, I need to liquidate my assets because my family will not be able to maintain this property, and the resources obtained from the sale will further advance their wealth pursuits once I'm gone. So that level of financial maturity is so critical. And as you all have talking about this sooner than later, the earlier we start about it, the more emotionally mature we can become around the assets and their role that they play in building wealth. When I think about Kareem, I want you to think about this. Austin Hayes asked, how best to appeal to the resistance that he receives from the Black community regarding financial literacy?
Mhm.
Yeah, so Austin, that's a good one, and that's a tough one, because the reason it's a difficult question is you're fighting our nature, right? If we're going to be honest, and you hear me talk about culturally relevant, so I'm going to speak in a culturally relevant way. The Black community, we don't like to be told anything. We really don't, right? If we're going to be honest, we don't want to be told anything. And if we are, then we come at it with this side eye, right? So that's what's happening when you come up with that resistance. So the best way, in my opinion, to get people to listen to you is for you to be really, really good at what you do and to have built your own personal brand to a level. What I don't like about our culture today and our society today is we're too celebrity driven. I don't like it because celebrities don't have to have an expertise in anything, but yet people listen to them because of who they are, not because of what they know. So to me, to one of the ways, because I don't have the answer. If I did, I'd be doing a whole lot of big stuff. But one of the ways to get through that is to, number one, explain to them, it's not about a deficiency of what you are as an individual or who raised you. It's about how can I elevate you with this knowledge. And that's where I think we're coming at it the wrong way. We're coming at it as you're saying, I don't know. And that's when we go to this, you can't tell me anything thing. No, I'm not saying you don't know. I'm saying, did you know? Not you don't know, but did you know? That's what I think we have to do. We have to approach it in that perspective of, did you know you can, instead of approaching it in a way of, you don't know you can, if that makes sense.
That's a powerful shift in perspective that I hope not just Austin got, but everybody got. Did you know? Not you don't know, did you know? Also, Kareem, touching 1 million Black folks in 10 years is quite a big thing. That's a powerful thing for the legacy of the college, the legacy of the center, and the legacy of you, I respectfully say. Wes, I'd like you to talk about Denise Thomas's question. She said, what are your recommendations concerning building relationships with professionals in the financial services industry?
I'm assuming that the question is really around other professionals in our industry and building relationships with them. I think it starts with, expanding our networks, first of all, but I also believe that it has a lot to do with honing your skills. I really do. I go back to just a comment that Karim made a few minutes ago. I think that there's nothing more important in our industry than the honing of your skill set, that don't just stay on the surface, go deep, go deep in areas that are, of greatest interest to you, because it's really hard to be an advisor across all elements of needs that people have. And I think in developing relationships with professionals, they have very specific areas of need based on their life stage, right? So retirement planning and thinking about how you help someone that's at a stage of life where they're looking to decumulate is very different than the skill sets that you need when you're helping, let's say, a millennial that's beginning to enter the strong earnings years of their life. And what they probably need more is, how do you help them accumulate wealth, begin to accumulate wealth? So investing. So I really think that it is also important for us as a community to start operating in teams. And I think that that's the best way then to cover off on the various requirements of knowledge in what is a very complex set. When you think about all the elements of financial literacy, right? Starting, with the very basics of just earning money, and then saving, and then, what the implication of credit is, and borrowing and investing. It's no different. I mean, those are the foundational ingredients, but when you start thinking about delivering advice to professionals, they require deeper skill sets in each of those areas. And I think that teaming up is something that is new to us, because I also think another cultural element is sort of going to go it alone, right? And I think we've got to build trust in teams, and look around in your organization and think about who else is there that I could begin to start to either create a study group that is maybe the beginning of that teaming up in terms of building expertise. But those would be, to me, that's an area that I have a particularly strong interest in seeing more teams, more African Americans work as teams, as advisors.
That's excellent, Wes. And I love how you said go deep. And so when we go a little deeper into Denise Thomas's question, I'd like to open this up to the rest of the panel. And I'd like to start with Colleen. What have been some of your best practices with building relationships with professionals? Because while Denise, I don't know exactly what angle you were coming from this question, I'm going to think about it from two different ways. One is building up and down your value chain, but also building relationships with fellow advisors. And how do you cultivate that type of a group? So either way you want to take it, and even if there's another way, Colleen, if you could speak directly from your perspective, I think that would really help Denise.
Definitely. And I would actually like to compliment you, Dr. Jolly. Sending that question to Wes is probably the best thing that you could have done, because he is amazing at cultivating those relationships. I mean, just the relationships with the principals and the employees at the member firms, it's not an easy task. So he's definitely a good resource, and I hope that everyone listened carefully to what the advice that he just gave. So for me, I think one of the most important things was to develop your value statement. Again, I know this sounds like a cliche, but you have to have people be very clear about what it is you offer. And once you have that, then it's important that you learn from them what it is they need. As Wes indicated earlier, it's important that you don't just go hunting, but you also pass out referrals to people that you want to work with as well. You're always connecting people in your network. You're always thinking about, oh, this person may have needed this. And I can say that I'm always working. I mean, I was talking to a friend of mine earlier casually about selling her home and capital gains, et cetera. And, this is what we do. We're just constantly educating people. And so you're always going to, improve your skills, but, you just want to just jump in, establish who you are, what your goals are, who you want to work with, make sure they know exactly what you do, and then really figure out how it is you can help them. And as I think one of the panelists mentioned earlier, work as a team. You want to work with your clients as a member of a team. We don't do everything from a planning aspect for our clients. So it's important to, give those professionals the respect that they're due and invite them in when the opportunity arises.
That's excellent. One of the things I work with Black financial advisors across the country with Torch, and one of the things that I love is that after I've made a referral, I can be confident that if they can't help them, they will refer somebody else. Because the ultimate desired outcome is that Black wealth builder gets the help that they need. So there's a certain level of professional maturity in knowing who you can help, who you can't help, but also how you can help them by referring them to someone else. So Denise, I hope that helped your question, and I hope that you do build that network with financial professionals in our industry, because it's definitely needed. Dwayne, I would like to have you help me help Kim Thomas. She had a question that said, what are practical steps that one should take to initiate their journey towards improved financial literacy if they are not already connected with an advisor?
I would say, well, there's a lot of stuff out there that they can read. One of the things that I try to do to some clients was we'll send them list of periodicals, or if I see an article on certain topics that I think might be of interest to that group. I've kind of segmented our book or our practice that way. So, you know, one of the things you want is your clients and people in the industry who may not have an advisor. You have to, maybe you start writing op-eds, you start writing a newsletter, and you start sending it to folks who aren't necessarily clients, but people in the area, or what I call also third-party interest groups or third-party influencers. I leave packets sometimes at barbershops, beauty shops, simply of information. You know, we put a little sticker on, but there's all kinds of today financial information that's available to at least start in getting basic concepts down. So you don't necessarily have to have an advisor initially, just to make yourself a little more learned, because some people don't want to talk to advisor because they fear that they don't know enough, or they'll appear stupid, or they'll appear a little ignorant. And that's not the case. I mean, if I'm talking, you know, if I'm going to the doctor and I've got a pain, I'm going to describe it. Doc, you know, help me out here. Here's what's going on. We've got to get past that of appearing to feel unknowledgeable. There's no shame in not knowing. The shame is not knowing and not asking. So just start the journey.
I love that. I love that. And think about how powerful it can be when more and more of our Black financial advisors become published authors. And so as someone who has written a book and sold thousands of copies across the country, people read. Yes. And they really take it to heart. And so until they're ready to work with you directly, give them something. Give them breadcrumbs that will lead them closer to the industry in a more professional and a more structured way. The other thing is, Kim, in terms of Kim Thomas's question, Kareem, can you share a little bit more about our Pillar 1 in terms of how we are approaching the community around financial literacy?
Yeah, absolutely. So Kim, great question. And I do love that question, because I think far too often we address things from a perspective of the person's already got knowledge, or already has an advisor, or already has money. So I love the fact that you're saying, how do we start that journey when you don't have an advisor? So the pillar of financial education, through this pillar, as we educate more people, it raises the level of the dialogue. And when I think about my personal financial journey, and the person that's given me the best financial advice, his net worth is probably, you know, it's probably 100 less. I can't even tell you how much more my net worth is than his, but he still gives me advice today. Practical, tangible advice. So you don't need to feel like you have to go to the most high-powered individual. To Dwayne's point, you just need to start the journey. But I want us to start that journey speaking to people who have an invested interest in financial education, and people who have had conversations with people who understand something, sharing of the knowledge. And that's why Pillar 1 is so critical to us, because it's our effort to share that financial education with the broader population. So Kim, thank you for that question. I think it's a great question. And Dwayne, I thought you did a great job of answering it.
Awesome. And Kim Thomas, further down the road in terms of the center, we're going to be hosting some symposiums around financial literacy. And so we hope that you stay connected with the center and Kim and Kareem's work, so that perhaps that can be part of the vehicle for you to initiate your journey and those who need it as well.
Dr. Jolly?
Yes.
If I could just say one thing, one of the things about Ted Daniels and the society is that Ted gets no compensation whatsoever from doing what he does. His interest was never, ever, hey, he's not looking for a client. What Ted is doing is just what has been said. He wants to raise the level of the conversation so that folks then begin to say, you know, maybe there's a better way, because I've got some education, now let me go search for an advisor. Now let me go find somebody who can help me on this journey. I mean, I think that's one of the most selfless things about TED and the society is they're completely nonprofit. And I mean, they've got advisors who I know have driven 6 to 8 hours in a day just to get to an HBCU in the snow to do a presentation for 100 college students. And those college students will then later go out and they might seek an advisor because they've received some education. So I would totally agree and just say that it doesn't have to be an immediate benefit. I mean, there are organizations like TED and working with the college. He's not looking to compete. He's looking to grow.
Excellent, excellent. And again, yet another reason why it's so we're so grateful for our partnership with Ted Daniels at the center. The next question came from Tony Fields, and he actually asked it of me. He said, I'm currently involved in a financial literacy workshop as a mentor. Please speak on personal brand building in one's community. And thank you for asking that, Tony. I am blessed to have worked in over 93 cities across the country. And the way that I was able to do that was building relationships. And so that personal brand building, I'm not a push strategy type of girl. I'm actually a pull strategy. So I build relationships with stakeholders and influencers such as churches, banks, large national non-for-profits. And so I share with them what my work is, and then they pull me into their community. I think one of the powerful things about that is that you're not shoving your wares. You actually are coming because you've been called. And then you can truly give your heart and give what you care about most to the community. Because what I love most about our community is that wealth is cultural and it is a group process. And so you can connect with one person in that community and they can connect you with as many friends and family as they believe you should reach. So spend time building your brand, yes, by getting clear about what is the problem that you're able to solve towards this long journey that we are on. But get very, very connected in the right way with the right people and watch how your gifts will make room for you. So thank you, Tony. The next question the next two questions are from what I'm going to call the Turner family, because Chris Turner and Elvin Turner both asked strategic questions. So I'm going to throw this out to our panel. I'm going to ask the first question. Chris Turner asked, what do the panelists think about Forex and coin craze? It seems that African Americans are most interested. What are the positive and negatives?
So I'll start off on that, Dr. Jolly. So Chris, thanks for the question. So it's an interesting question. I have a sister who's heavy into it right now. So that's why I'm going to start off on it, because a family member of mine, I don't know, she's so into it. So I'm not going to say plus or minus if it's a good thing or bad thing, because that's not really my space. I will say I think this. I think the attraction to the African American and Black community is that it's transactional. And that's how we view money, as transactional. That's the space that we seem to be comfortable with, is things that are transactional by nature. So I think that's why you see an over-indexing of the Black population going into this. Now, I don't want to say if it's good or bad, plus or minus, because I'm not into it personally. But I would just ask that we do this, that we change our mindset and shift our paradigm to go from a transactional state to more of a long-term relationship state with our money. Because right now, that's what's keeping our net worth down. That's what's keeping this wealth gap. That's what's helping keep this wealth gap the way it is, because we're so transactional. Our incomes are going up, but our net worths are not going up because we think so transactional. So I don't want to say anything's positive or negative. I'll just say, let's change our mindset when it comes to things like this, because that's why we're over-indexing in them.
Yeah, I would add to that. I would say just look at everything that's happened, even in our lifetimes, that go back 30, 40, 50 years, depending on what age group you are. And you see all the various sort of, make money quick, turn around, get big returns quick. They do tend to appeal to not only communities of color, but typically immigrant communities, and they appeal because they are transactional, and it's a quicker way potentially to accumulate wealth. And so I believe, as Karim said, this is a long-term, and this is a long journey that we're on. And I think setting objectives, talking to clients about understanding their objectives over not just this next 12 months or 18 months when they can turn something over, but understanding an individual's objectives over the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years is really the most important aspect of being able to provide advice then, and be able to look at the various options that should fit that individual based on their objectives and their life cycle, where they are in that life cycle. So like Karim, I'm not going to comment on good or bad, but I just think that we have to be aware that these kinds of things come along every generation, and they typically don't end well.
Excellent.
And the question that I would ask them, just as a response, because you're going to get that on a lot of different topics, is I will normally just say, and how does that fit into your wealth plan and your sustainment plan? And they'll, well, I don't have one. Then we need to address that first. And then we can talk about that particular, but ask them, because we tend to, as both people have just said, we go one and not think holistically about our entire financial and how it fits into that. And you're, as the advisor, that's what you should be thinking of. Hey, you've got to do a plan.
Excellent. Colleen, did you want to weigh in on this one?
No, I think that all the points that were made were great. I, of course, believe that things evolve, and so we're just getting more and more educated on it. So we'll see where it goes. But yes, I won't comment on it either way. I think it's just important that people educate themselves.
Excellent. So Chris, it's a holistic perspective. We've been talking about the bigger picture. And so positives or negatives aside, there's risk involved, but really allowing them to see the bigger picture, that this is one of many strategies that a wealth builder needs to take. And that speaking with a financial advisor who is adept at navigating the ebbs and flows of the marketplace is the best way to start. And so we're going to go to Elvin Turner, and I think that this is a nice tie-in. You guys must be related. It says, can the panel discuss strategies that encourage people to lengthen their planning cycle? Most people plan in 18-month increments. Planning strategies need to be 15 to 20 years to begin to work well. So strategies to encourage to lengthen the planning cycle is his question.
I can speak on that. I'm saying this because I did a presentation for a professional organization in DC, and it was specifically people who were interested in learning financial planning techniques for themselves. They're at various points in their careers, and really I broke it down for them because I realized a lot of people don't understand that no matter who you are, you fall into a certain stage of life, so you're in your growth stage, your accumulation stage, your distribution stage. And inside of each of those stages, there are different things that are occurring. But most importantly, you have advisors that you should be talking to in each of these stages. And so that's what I talk to people about most of the time is, who are your advisors in these stages? And these are the questions that you should be asking, just so they know, so they're not leaving things out. And I think it was really just like a 2-page Word document that broke it down, but it allowed people to see that, you can start thinking about those long-term questions now and know which advisors to tap to help you in that specific stage of your life. So that's a technique that I've used in the past, and that's how I've talked to people. I mean, that's the most basic way that I can discuss it with people so they understand that, it's not something that they have to address when they're standing at the front door of retirement. So that's just a planning tool that I use.
Excellent. That's very, very helpful. So as we wrap this up, I wanted to leave the audience with 6 key points that I've been able to summarize. But before I do that, panelists, any last minute thoughts you want to share?
So Dr. Jolly, I'll jump in really quickly, and this will be brief. I want to thank all of the Black advisors that tuned into this panel, to this broadcast, because you guys, in my opinion, are the ones that are going to really pave the way for the future of the industry, right? I thank you for going through the hard parts to become an advisor. Colleen, you've done it, right? Continue doing it. And nothing more I love than to see someone succeed in this industry. And I want to thank all the people that joined this, because I admire all of you for what you've gone through to get to this point. And I hope we can help you at the center to achieve the goals that you have set forward. So I just want to make sure I got that out, Dr. Jolly, before you wrap up.
Got it. Awesome. Any last question? Any last comments from Dwayne, Wes, or Colleen?
I would encourage everyone on this broadcast to stay connected with us. I mean, we're on LinkedIn, so we can continue this discussion forever about how to improve our business and what's working for us. So I would just encourage anyone to reach out to me and let's connect and see if we can encourage others.
Got it. Thank you so much. Wes or Dwayne?
Well, I just thank you for inviting me. I am not a great substitute for Ted, but I did the best I could. But I would just say the one thing is, over the years, we are not in competition with each other. The biggest thing I say is we should be all to help each other. I mean, there might be in a city 100 African-American advisors, and the market is 10 million in that city. You're not going to get to all of them. So do everything that you can to support and help each other. Build those strategic relationships. Have 3 of every kind, CPA, attorney, whatever, because there are not enough of us. There won't be enough of us for a long time. So don't worry about competition. Worry about honing your skills, and you'll do great.
Excellent.
I would just add my comment would be really about the college, the American College, and I would just say to every advisor on this call, sharpen your saw, take advantage of the great learning opportunities and skill building that the college provides, and the not necessarily even just credentialing, but really continue to hone your skill. It's a journey, and we never know too much. And tax laws change each with cycles of change in administrations. We're about to go through one now. And I really think it's critical that everyone on this call, think about what are you doing this year to hone your skills and get better at your craft.
Excellent. So thank you, panelists, so much. As I wrap up, 6 key quick things. This is possible, and I hope that you see that as a result of this breakout session. Get very clear about your offer, know your tribe, build it, reach out and touch, and stay consistent. Think 2 generations far down the road, because there is a system that we must learn how to bias in our favor when it comes to wealth. Point number 2, teach us the impact of immediate and deferred gratification, and involve everyone in the conversation, parents, children, friends, and family. Point number 3, it takes a holistic view, one that we can share together to narrow this gap. Go deep. Go deep within yourself, deep within your industry, and deep within your community. Point 4, you are a part of the gap too, financial advisors. So please close your knowledge gap so that you can increase your capacity to narrow our wealth gap. Build a book of business that allows you to be yourself. Point number 5, look at starting early with the wealth conversation as building a pipeline of cross-generational wealth builders. And the last point, connect with who you know how to connect with, and structure that connection in ways to accelerate progress towards wealth as we define it. I pray that this shifted your perspective. I pray that you really took the nuggets of wisdom, knowledge, and understanding within the panel. And I pray you'll be back for future breakouts for CAAFP. So on behalf of the American College of Financial Services, thank you all again for attending today's presentation. The college has a number of webcasts. plan for the future, and you can sign up for them at theamericancollege.edu/events, including our last CAAFP breakout session on June 10th.
Hi, I'm Mike James, EVP at NFP Individual Solutions. I'm excited to have been selected once again as the MC for the American College of Financial Services 15th Annual Conference of African American Financial Professionals. Out of an abundance of caution, we will be holding this year's conference virtually once again, but that in no way diminishes the enthusiasm and excitement for this outstanding interactive event. On August 10th and 11th, we will have inspiring, informative keynote speakers and engaging breakout sessions with some of our community's best thought leaders, highlighted by a special tribute to Tulsa's Black Wall Street and how its example can be a guidepost for economic empowerment moving forward. We'll have giveaways, prizes, and star-studded entertainment. Back this year is the Dixon Lead Award. The Leadership and Excellence in Achieving Diversity Award was created to honor Lang Dixon and to recognize an impactful leader who has been successful in achieving diversity in the financial services profession. We need your help now to select this year's recipient. Please go to our website, theamericancollege.edu/Lang Dixon Award, to nominate one of your colleagues. The deadline for entries is May 28th, so don't delay. Now listen closely. Conference registration opens today with another can't miss offer. Our early bird special is just $99 for the first 99 registrations. Register now at theamericancollege.edu/CAAFP 2021 to take advantage of this exceptional offer. That's August 10th and 11th. The American College's Conference of African American Financial Professionals goes virtual again. But oh so vital. See you soon.